Good evening, everybody. It is your girl Stacey, and it's time for the midweek vlog. Yoo-hoo! So anyway, I wanted to do a follow-up before I get started from Saturday's vlog, which was the HR tips. I forgot to add two things. With your emails and your voicemails, you want to make sure you remain professional. Although you may think sexy girl or hot man at 32@yahoo.com is cute, your employers will not think so. So you want to make sure it's standard. I suggest getting like a Gmail, like cjones@gmail.com, something with your initials or something like that, something that is professional. Also, your ringtones. I know we love music, and I'm a big old school hip hop fan myself, but I don't think your employers would appreciate hearing Big Daddy Kane, Jay-Z, Beyonce, or any of those people. Even Mary or Kurt Franklin. I don't think they want to hear that on your ringtone when they're calling you about a job interview. I suggest you just do your standard ring and, until you're off the job market, and then you can go back to getting your groove on, okay? I wanted to also share some things. I got a lot of correspondence, so thanks, guys. I'm glad that I'm able to help and provide tips that you need and keep them coming. Let me know what else I can help you with. But I got a letter from a friend who needs some help with her resume, and I also got a message on Facebook from a friend that wanted some advice and wanted to know how I became a professor at Strayer. So I'll share that as well. But let me get started with the letter. I'm going to read it to you guys, and then I'm going to provide her with some guidance. Okay, dear Stacey, I could use your advice. I have several time gaps in my resume. I'm a television news reporter who transitioned into public relations several years ago. I became the spokesperson for our local sheriff, but after 6 years, I was forced out. How do I explain this? In a nutshell, I was reassigned to another agency where I was given a job making $30,000 less as an administrative assistant. So, I'm an administrative assistant at a hospital. However, when a sexual assault occurs in the hospital, I start doing PR again as I help the administrator with crisis management and employee communication. I was promoted to manager, employee and community relations, but later demoted back to a secretary when my boss got fired. Again, how do I explain this roller coaster ride? I'm afraid the potential employer will get spooked or see this as a red flag. Eventually, I left the administrative assistant position and worked for 2 months as a contractor doing PR work internal PR work and internal communications for U.S. Cellular. I left U.S. Cellular with a good reference and have been a stay-at-home mom since 2013, in part by choice, but also because I'd apply for positions and end up in the top 3, unable to close the deal. I'm wondering, and here come the questions. How do you explain a firing or demotion? Should I change my chronological resume to a functional resume? Recently, I started doing some pro bono consultant work. Should I put that at the top of my resume as though it is my most recent job? And last one, do I have to personalize my every single cover letter? At that rate, I'll only complete 1 application a day, given the research, etc. That goes into writing each letter. Can't I use the standard letter I've attached? And she sent me an attachment. If you don't mind, take a look at my cover letter and resume. I'd love your input. Don't worry about hurting my feelings, because nothing hurts my feelings more than the letter that starts with "Dear Candidate, thank you for your interest. While your background was impressive. ... Sincerely, need job like yesterday." Okay, need job like yesterday. Let me help you out. First of all, I'm sick of those emails too and those letters. Dear candidate, while your background was impressive. I got way too many of those, and they're downers for sure. So let me see if I can help you. All right, your first bullet point. How do you explain a firing or demotion? I don't. So I put, they'll see on your resume, and, I just stick to the general information. So if they ask me, well, we see a gap in this time, could you explain that to me? And that's when I'm truthful and honest and explain to them, well, like for me, for example, when there was a gap with me, with my most recent position, they asked me. And I was truthful and said, well, there was a reorganization and I was impacted. That's all you got to say. They don't need to know the details or whatever. These people probably know that life happens and demotions and everything, occur on a regular. I wouldn't say I was fired, but your position ended. Okay? Should I change my chronological resume to a functional resume? You can, but let me caution you with this, because I was just helping someone the other day at work. When you do that, they're still going to say, well, how long ago was that? Because they want to make sure your experience is current and it's not dated. So you can put a time span, but I would be really careful about that as well. Okay? Recently, I started doing some pro bono work. Should I put that at the top of my resume as though it's my most recent job? I would. It depends on if recent, are we talking in the last year or two? If so, yes, I will put that. And then for your time that you were home with the kids, you could put homemaker. That's okay. That's the norm nowadays, so that's not a bad thing. Do I have to personalize every single cover letter? At that rate, I get that. I'm sorry, I didn't need to read that whole sentence again, but yes, no, you don't have to personalize every cover letter. Those that are really, how can I say it? There are certain jobs that were really important to me and top on my priority list that I really wanted to go into. And then those I would personalize. But just, the standard applications that you're, just trying to get your foot in the door, maybe it's not as high priority for you, I would do the standard letter. Because you're right, that's a lot. I was applying for 5 to 6 jobs a day. I couldn't do a cover letter for every one of them, okay? So, I hope that helps. I'm trying to see if there was anything else you wanted me to touch on. But that's how I would start. If you have further questions, just like you did before, email me and, I'll go from there. Or if I didn't provide enough detailed support, let me know that as well. Also, I had an email from someone that was asking me to take a look at their resume, and it was very good and very impressive, but I caution you and tell everyone, watch your spacing and your margins. When people see that, they look at the spacing and how the actual wording and text looks on the paper. If that's not lined up correctly and it, bullet points are out of place, they're gonna concentrate on that instead of really concentrating on the meat of your resume. So make sure, do your grammar checks, your spelling checks. Just make sure, like my emailer did, let someone else look at it with a different eye. Okay? Then my friend Lisa Melton, my homie from home, asked me, how do you secure a job as an instructor or professor? Okay, Lisa, there's no quick or right answer. With me, I was just persistent. I think you need to look at the universities or community colleges that you're interested in and see if they have openings. With me, they didn't have an opening for an HR professor, but I sent my credentials over and I was persistent. I kept following up with the dean, sending emails, spotlighting, my history, what I, did for a living, my certifications, etc., or whatever. That's what I did. I was always on them, and they were interested, but the thing with me was I didn't have my doctorate, or I don't have my doctorate. And a lot of the college courses want you to have your doctorate, which I think you do, Lisa. But that's what I did. I just kept staying on them. It took me about a year. So finally, I think I started like in June of 1 year, and I finally, was able to land a job and get some courses on the following spring. And I think it's because a lot, too, you got to make sure they need that coursework. And it all depends on enrollment and what, the students need. So luckily, Strayer has a heavy business side and human resources side. So they needed extra professors. So I was able to get in that way. But persistence is my advice for that. And I think, I'm trying to look through my notes. I think that is it, everybody. If you want any more information or need some more tips, give me a holler. I hope this was helpful. Again, remember my information about your emails and your voicemails. Make sure your resumes are pleasing to the eye, because that will take away from the content. So I think that is it. If you want to leave me comments, I would greatly appreciate it. Please feel free to inbox me if you don't want to share with everyone. And I will talk to you Saturday with my next vlog. Take care. Holla.